The definition of the American dream is probably for everyone a little different.
It's the American dream is coming from somewhere foreign, somewhere that's not here, coming here and making a name for yourself.
I mean, you have to work to fulfill the American dream. It's not coming overnight.
So my name is Martin Bohn. I was born in Germany in 1974, and that's where I'm originated from. I basically grew up without a dad. My dad died when I was 13 months old. I lived with my two siblings in the house my parents were building in 1967.
I grew up in probably the same size of the city like Wichita Falls. It was in Bavaria. And I grew up and went to school there, and I moved away when I finished high school.
I was born in the northern part of Germany in a small town named Rheine. It's pretty close to Dortmund, so that's where I was born, but I was raised near Stuttgart, which is in the southern part of Germany. I lived there until I was 6 years old. However, we go back every year or every 2 years to visit friends, family, relatives, and just to see where we lived and tour Europe as well.
This was destiny. I mean, I was initially in Wichita Falls, 97, 98 for my education as a pilot, becoming a jet pilot for the German Air Force. And then we came back in 2006 as an instructor pilot. The initial tour was for 3.5 years, but then we stayed for almost 7.
And I didn't want to leave Wichita Falls. I loved it here. And the other thing was, with us just having our green card, there was a chance that if my dad stayed in the military, we'd have to go back to Germany. That would complicate a whole bunch of stuff with getting our citizenship, and I knew I didn't want to fly for the German Air Force. Right? I knew I always wanted to fly for the US Air Force. They have more fighters, they have different fighters. And so that was one of my big worries and doubts. How am I going to make this work from, across the pond?
And coming out of this training, basically, I was able to receive an award from the US Air Force as the Instructor Pilot of the Year in 2010. During that ceremony award, the Chief of the US Air Force basically wrote me a letter of recommendation to stay in the US. I turned that in with immigrations, and I was allowed to stay on a green card for 5 years, and then in 2018 I became a US citizen.
When we moved in our first apartment, that's still my memories because it was nasty. We had a green carpet, which you walked over with white socks. It was pitch black. It always sticks in my memories. That's not what I expected when we were gonna move here.
The initial move was not with the intent to stay in the US or become a US citizen. And we never made consciously the decision to start the flight school. I had a job already lined up after my retirement from the German Air Force. We started building a house in Las Cruces, New Mexico, and during the building phase I got a call one day from the company telling us, well, I'm awfully sorry, but you don't have a job because you can't get your the right security clearance for this job anymore. And that dream was dead. Out of this situation, I basically now had no job, no place to go, so I stayed here in Wichita Falls. And I wanted to start flying a little bit around here to do what I really like to do and what's my passion. And a friend of mine asked me if I want to teach him in the meanwhile on his little airplane he bought. And I'm like, well, sure. I've never flown in my entire life civilian airplanes. So I got first some kind of lessons that I actually knew what I'm doing. Then I trained him. Then he asked me if I can train his son. Within 6 weeks we had 11 students. And then we decided basically to do the flight school, and then flying more, we needed maintenance, so we started the maintenance facility, and out of that we started the charter facility, and it's basically how it all came along. It was never the plan to build up a company the way we have it right now here in Wichita Falls.
We have the maintenance facility, which is just aircraft maintenance, which is actually taking off since COVID has started. Before then it was a little bit slow. But we got new management and COVID, we've hired plenty of new guys, so it's really kicking off. The charter, which is essentially an air taxi, if you want to think about it that way. Essentially, we fly clients around. They either bring their aircraft to us, or we have some that we can offer to them as well. That would be like this jet behind me, smaller aircraft as well. That's VIPs, governors, congressmen, etc.
We started the flight school, which is it's called a FAR 141 approved flight school. That's an FAA certificate, which is issued as a professional flight school. In the 9 years, we basically have trained more than 900, or we have issued more than 900 pilot certificates in all kinds of the areas, single engine, multi-engine, private pilot, all the way to citation type ratings.
So originally we were actually Cobra Kai, which is the bad guys in Karate Kid. How did we get that name? Well, it was an evening and they were drinking, and so that's the decision they came up with. Since we were training mainly military guys, it actually worked out really well. The name was a huge hit. We were selling a bunch of t-shirts. However, as we kind of advanced and got a little more professional, we rebranded to Aerospace Next. The main reason we did that is because we were bidding on government contracts, and so it was important to us to seem professional and real and not, Cobra Kai, haha, go team. And the little wordplay on the next is the November 3 X-Ray Tango, which looks like a tail number of an aircraft. The business ties into every aspect of my life. School, everything I do is based on what can I do here that furthers the business? I think that's a lot of pride there, because it's not just pride for my family and for the name of the company, it's also pride in myself for doing what I've done and for really pushing the business to bigger heights. I just added on a drone part so we can start teaching or giving out and teaching for drone licenses. So there's a lot of pride in that I think that a lot of younger people can't relate to. Just because they've never been given the opportunity, quite frankly, so I'm really grateful for that. There were still some struggles because, like I said, businesses are hard to run, especially when you're doing your own business that requires a lot of time, and I think as a young child, you don't really see that, and so all you see is your parents just putting more and more time into something you don't really understand why. And that was a big thing, especially during junior high to high school, when you start getting your first girlfriend and you started playing sports and stuff like that. So it's not that they were never there, they're always there. It was just, I think, not being able to comprehend quite what is going on.
I think we're a very close family. That's probably also the reason the kids are still living at home, because obviously they still like us. No, I think for my opinion, we have a great family dynamic.
We have an extreme dynamic life because of what all is going on. Everybody is participating or has to participate, that this will work. The kids learned this very early when they were just like 14, 15 years old. They had to help as well and be part of this. And I think they are okay with it. This is like with all the children. Sometimes they like it more and sometimes they like it less, because usually when you run your own business, it's Monday through Monday. There is no weekend. And I think the kids have learned this already. They understand the necessity for it. And if you really want to be successful, I think this is the burden you carry as your business owner nowadays, if you want to be successful, that it's 7 days a week and not just a 9-to-5 job.
We have a pretty good dynamic. I think we're a lot closer than some other families maybe, just because we have this shared passion and this shared need of, we need to get this done, because if we don't, what's going to pay the electricity, what's going to put food on the table? So
I think we've demonstrated this in these 8 years, that if you really want to work hard and you get up in the morning and do your stuff and you do more than other people do, you will succeed. You will have your setbacks, but there's not a doubt in my mind that anybody can do it if you are willing to do it.
But there was, of course, that big fear of, what if I fail? What if I do this wrong? What if I do something so bad it cripples everything else and we lose that foundation of what we have? I think a little bit of that anxiety and fear is still there, because you always know, okay, if I make one wrong decision or if I make too risky of a move, what if that goes wrong? But I think that is overshadowed by just having confidence in your decisions and also the results, because you can look at your history and say, okay, this didn't work for this person. Would this work for me if I change these variables?
I really can't say that I have experienced a whole lot of struggles. The biggest setback now for the entire business was probably COVID, but everybody had that problem. It's not just specific for what we were doing. But what I have seen and how much help we got from friends around us, which are business owners, it's incredible. This is something which would never happen in Europe. You would never see people helping you with advice, financially, or connections to be successful in your business. And this was very eye-opening over here, how many people are interested in your success, versus in Europe, everybody wants you not to be successful because they tell you, I told you you started this and it's gonna go sideways.
It's two completely different cultures, right? It's the language, naturally, of course, but also just the way you interact with people, the way that you go about your daily lives, it's completely different. It's like comparing apples and oranges. It's just not the same at all.
You cannot really compare the German culture with the American way of life, because the US is a country of immigration. There's multiculti is a normal thing where multiple cultures work with each other and accept each other significantly more than what you can see anywhere in Europe, because the European culture is very strict, very rigid, and people, when they talk immigration, they really don't know what they're talking about, what it means to accept other cultures and the way they live in Europe or how they want to be integrated. And therefore, I think it is so much easier to be over in the US and have a life here.
Coming from a nation where there's not as much freedom, especially, you know, that's not to say Germany isn't a great place. It is, but not compared to here, right? Compared to here, there's no place on earth. There's a reason why every foreigner wants to come here, why, you know, the United States is known across the world.
But for me, it is the freedom that I can design and live my life the way I desire to do so. And you won't get stopped in that. And this is really true what you can do here. The regulatory boundaries are so much broader than in Europe, so you really can do things which is absolutely unimaginable in Europe. That's why when you get visitors over here and they see what we do, they understand why we stayed.
The American dream to me is building up a empire, if you will, building up this life for yourself and being able to give your children, your grandchildren, great-grandchildren, something better than what you had in the first place. And I think that's really important, and that's, a lot of people think that's dead, and I think that's sad. I mean, if you put in the hard work, the dedication, you can still live the American dream. I would say we are.